He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way.
The brave men and women who fought and lived during the Second World War are often called the Greatest Generation. This is the story of my grandmother and her family as they lived through World War II. World War II began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. On September 3rd, the European Allies declared war on Germany. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, forcing America to join the war. On December 8th, the United States declared war on the Axis, and the Axis declared war on the United States. The Axis partners included Germany, Japan, and Italy. The Allies included the United States, England, France, and many other European countries. During the war, fighting went on all around Europe, Africa, and the South Pacific. In the Pacific theater, the U.S. and England fought the Japanese. Allied bombers bombed many factories in Germany to stop the production of war materials for the Axis. In retaliation, the Germans bombed England very frequently. As a result, the United States was always alert in the case a bomb was dropped. When the soldiers left to fight the war, American citizens were needed to make much-needed supplies for the war effort. People in America also collected metal for supplies. My grandmother, Anna Reimel, is the youngest of 6 children. Anna was born and raised in the small northeastern Pennsylvania coal mining town of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. The United States became involved in World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1942. Directly prior to World War II, the United States was suffering during the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a time of widespread unemployment, poverty, reduced manufacturing, and great suffering for the American people. Once war was declared, many jobs were created, especially in manufacturing needed supplies for the war. In addition, a great sense of patriotism swept the nation. This is the story of one family's experience during World War II. Anna's only brother, William J. Morrissey, Jr., served in the United States Navy during World War II and was stationed in the South Pacific. William was a tail gunner, and his duties included manning the radio and using the tail gun on bombers. He also manned the radio of a bomber before he became a tail gunner. Anna remembers her brother and his friends leaving from high school to go to the recruiting office to sign up. A popular slogan of the day was "Uncle Sam wants you." Anna loved her older brother and was sad to see him go, but she, like her whole family, was proud of his bravery and sacrifice. Anna remembers the excitement of his packing his bags, getting his orders, and shipping out. The whole family gathered to bid him farewell. All the young men in the town were enlisting. It was an exciting time, but also a sad time. Anna remembers neighborhood boys who never made it home and died on the battlefield. Anna and her family could only communicate with William through letters. The whole family watched the post carefully so they could hear the news of her brother and the war. Anna loved getting letters from her brother and, more thrillingly, a package, special delivery. Anna's eldest sister, Geraldine, worked in a wire factory in Wilkes-Barre and was an example of the woman new to the workforce. Taking the place of men shipped off to fight the Axis in Europe, these women were often dubbed Rosie the Riveters. Anna's sister Charlotte was also a Rosie the Riveter who worked in a wire factory as well. Anna remembers the long, hard hours her sisters spent in the factory. The sisters spent 10 to 12 hours on their feet and worked very hard. It was exhausting work for little pay, but the girls were glad for the work and glad to help the war effort. Anna remembers her sisters, who also had some good times during the war. Anna's older sisters would go to the local USO for dances and socials with boys and home on leave from the war. Supplies were short during the war, and silk stockings were hard to come by. Anna remembers Geraldine and Charlotte using special paint makeup on their legs because they didn't have any stockings to wear. Anna and her younger sisters, Mary and Patricia, were school-age children and participated in the war effort by collecting scrap metal, saving grease, collecting for the Red Cross, and making care packages for soldiers away at war and for families still in Europe. Anna remembers saving a cooking fat from her mother's kitchen so that it could be used to make explosives. Anna would take tins of grease to common collecting bins downtown. Anna and her sisters also spent a great deal of time collecting scrap metal. Anna remembers the way there were banners at school and in town that read, "Slap the Japs right off the map by salvaging scrap." Anna's sister Mary was very thin and small, and one favorite family story is the day Mary dragged a sewing machine that weighed as much as her through the streets to the scrap drive. Although Anna and her sisters were young, the war effort was very much a part of their lives. Anna also recalls the ration books and victory gardens during World War II. During the war, every American was issued 2 ration books from Office of Price Administration, OPA. Ration books were filled with perforated stamps. One book contained blue stamp for canned goods, and the other had red coupons for meat, fish, and dairy products. Anna would shop with her mother for groceries. The amount of stamps for each item changed each week depending on the supply for each item. Anna's family was lucky because they had so many children, they always had plenty of ration books each month. Anna remembers that her mother gave Anna's ration book to her aunt and uncle who had no children. Anna recalls that her aunt and uncle would run out of butter or meat because they had to last the whole month on only 2 ration books. In addition, Anna had the job of helping her mother with the victory garden so that the family would have extra vegetables in addition to the canned food available by ration stamps. Finally, Anna's father, William J. Morrissey Sr., worked in a factory that made wire for the war effort. Anna's father served as the neighborhood air raid warden and ran drills in the neighborhood during the war. Air raid drills were a practice in case they had an actual bombing. He would go from house to house making sure there were no lights on. Anna's father was too old to be a soldier, but he contributed to the war effort by running the drills in their small neighborhood. Anna can still picture the hat and whistle that her father was issued by the Civil Defense. Anna recalls that living during World War II gave her a great sense of pride to be an American. It was an exciting time when America was fighting the Nazis and the Axis powers. The forces of good were defeating the forces of evil, and that made Anna proud to be a part of the effort and to know that her brother was fighting on the side of good. Anna loved listening to the radio and watching newsreels at the movies about the war. The whole nation supported the war, and there was a great sense of community and patriotism. Anna recalls the posters around the town stated, "Lose those lips, sink ships," reminded people to save gas and rubber for the war. Anna's family was just like the United States at large, hardworking and willing to sacrifice in order to defeat the Nazis and have freedom reign through the world. My grandmother was the perfect example of the typical American girl during World War II in the United States.